Hi everyone, thanks again for hopping on. We really appreciate your time. We know you have busy schedules, so it's great to connect, and we'll try to keep this to 45 minutes so you all can scoot out and get on with your afternoon. So thanks again. My name's Julia Whipple, and I'm the Director of Marketing with Blue Tent, and then we have Peter Scott, our President of Blue Tent, and Bryn Flaherty, our Director of Digital Marketing. So thanks again. We're going to chat about planning your digital strategy for 2017. And just a couple of notes on the actual webinar. Feel free to ask questions. They're totally anonymous, so you can submit your questions, and I'm monitoring them on my laptop here. So send away. And if there's anything that you want us to talk about in particular or go into detail, we can certainly do that. And then after the webinar, we'll also provide some information for you to get in touch in case you have questions outside of the 45 minutes. So let's get started.
Let's get started. What fun. So a couple things, and to Julia's point, it's nice to be kicking off our planning digital strategy on the last day of the month of January for 2017. I'm sure, like many of you, you guys had busy holidays, and all of a sudden we're kind of waking up and it's the end of January. So we're gonna cover some pretty interesting topics today. We've got Bryn here, who runs a team of pretty close to 15 people that touch many aspects of your businesses. But I think more importantly, one of the things that we're looking forward to in 2017 is more of these types of engagements with clients, with prospects, and because we learn a lot from this stuff. We learn a lot from the polls that you guys do, questions that you guys submit. So please make this interactive. This is the start. We hopefully will be doing about 2 of these a month. And for many of you, it doesn't cost anything. You get a lot of access to some smart people, and hopefully these are topics that will make you an extra $1,000 or $100,000 in the next year. So ultimately, one other thing, we do have an open dog policy here at Blue Tent, so you might see a couple little dogs running by and scratching on the door, so please take it easy on your comments. And then the last piece is we have 43 people here, so if you have friends and stuff like that, get them on, because we don't want Ryan Austin, our email director's webinar, having more people than our first one. So anyway, we appreciate everybody's attendance. So as we roll in here, why are we here? I mean, ultimately what we're trying to do is help you get a little bit of perspective across how to plan and create a digital strategy that allows you to outlast the competition and create sustainable growth. There's a lot of changes going on in this industry. We see it all the time. There's disruptions with Airbnb, with what VRBO's doing. There's the RBOs that are kind of running it by yourself. And so we see a lot of change happening. And a few of the things that Blue Tent's been focused on, especially over the last 12 months, is really the success and progression of independent professional vacation rental managers. That's a big push of ours. The more of you, it's just such a great industry. It's like if you're a hardworking person, you've had a business maybe for 20, 30 years, or you're just starting it new. It's just a neat opportunity for people to be in this business. But there's a couple of things that are super important. We talked about hard work, so that's always nice. But digital strategy is more important today than it was last year. And e-commerce, and trying to find the most effective ways for you to conduct transactions. And how you do that is through e-commerce platforms and through the phone and through online distribution access. Typically, those are the 3 ways we book reservations, and we put people into fancy houses and condos. But this industry is big time in flux. There's a lot of money coming in here. There's a lot of big players looking at this. And you all have a lot of choices as far as how do you approach this. And we're hoping that this webinar series allows you to see a little bit of the realism that's out there. This isn't easy stuff. Allows you to see that there's a lot of different options as far as how you allocate budget and how you go about kind of your tactical strategies. So today we're going to start kind of scraping the surface. We look at this a bit more as a discussion. Bryn's got some awesome topics that she's going to sink her teeth into a little bit with feedback from her team. But if you have questions and if you have anything you want us to address, drop it into the questions, comments, and Julie is monitoring this live. So with that, let's hit on some ideas as far as how do we grow this thing?
Yeah, so just one thing I wanted to touch on before we get into the more granular tactics is, a big conversation we've been having with our clients over the last year is how can we address the big changes in the industry that Peter kind of touched on. Obviously, the larger presence of the OTAs, the way they're changing a bit in terms of how much information we get from guests when they book through the OTAs. There have been large mergers. There's a lot of change happening, and if we can help our clients recognize the change and learn how to adapt, how to increase their direct bookings, how to own that guest experience, there is a huge opportunity for growth. And just one quick quote that we've been tossing around on the team from Skift. This is about 6 months old now at this point, but global travelers will book about $278 billion worth of travel online during the next 5 years. So
278 billion.
It's a big number.
And so that's hotels, flights, cars, and accommodations.
The entire online travel. And I'm sure we can dig up some quotes, specifically on the industry we're talking about today. But either way, if we can adapt, if we can take control of our business online, there's huge potential for growth. So that's something we want to look at. One of the things that we really focus on with our clients at Blue Tent is how can we create competitive advantage for each one of our clients. Just wanted to touch on a few ways that we approach accounts on a monthly basis when we're working with vacation rental managers all across the country. 3 steps that we really need to be looking at to drive that competitive advantage. The first one would be ROI. What do we need to do to get people at the bottom of the funnel to convert? And oftentimes those are quick, fast campaigns set up for short-term growth, flash sale, contests, things like that. So we're always looking at ways that we can drive ROI and conversions. We're also always looking at ways that we can increase brand loyalty. That's the top of the funnel, the brand awareness, that emotional appeal, emotional connection that really helps your brand solidify in your online presence. Excuse me. And then the last step we look at is testing. We always want to be getting our clients out ahead of the competition by using different tools, testing, A/B testing in email, doing user experience tests, anything we can do to really find that low-hanging fruit to get them ahead.
And I think one of the things that we continually see, and we hear ROI, everybody talks ROI every day as far as what do I get for that? How much does it cost? What am I going to get for that? I think one of the main takeaways for those that are tuning in today is, one, set your plan in motion and set your benchmark. So when somebody says ROI to you, ask them specifically, what does that mean? Because we know that ROI for a website project might be a lot different than, say, for a paid advertising push, or even for you guys were running a couple of those email flash sales. A lot of you guys that have strong summer booking windows, let's say June, July, August, that your phones start ringing off the hook about the day after Thanksgiving, and they're maybe starting to slow down just a little bit right now. And so you're looking at your book of business, and you're probably maybe 50% booked for the summer. You got a few owners starting to freak out. So what is the plan for February, March, and April to put you ahead of the game, and what does ROI mean for you now? And so that's a big part of what we're trying to kind of put in place last day of January. But and many of you have been working through this, and sometimes these webinars are more of a kick in the behind of just kind of reminding you that it just takes consistency and discipline, which are 2 tough things to do to make it happen. So I would challenge our clients and our friends that are tuning in to ask deeper questions about the ROI. I like how you go into conversions and brand and testing, because if we as Blue Tent, we pride ourselves on being brand experts, because we do feel like that drives that repeat guest. And we know that the big guys, and the HomeAways, the VRBOs, the Airbnbs, Expedia very soon, Booking.com very soon, are going to be working the top of that funnel. And it may not be a bad idea for you to be able to take some of those guests and turn them into current guests, and you're paying pretty heavy price, maybe 10 to 20% of the booking. But how do you get them to come back next time? And that's a bit of what you talk about as far as emotional loyalty versus transactional loyalty. So a few things to think about.
Yeah, and that emotional loyalty is really what we are striving for with every strategy that we're working on with our clients. We don't want you to just be a place to stay or a bed for someone to reserve for the night or the week. We want them to really feel a connection to your brand. That is what's going to get them to become repeat guests, and that's what's going to get them to share the message about your brand to friends and family. So we're always looking at that with every strategy that we create with our clients.
And it is interesting. We spend a lot of time talking about repeat guests. And some of our clients live in areas where people come back to the same house on the same week every year. And they almost call it their house. Others in, say, like Myrtle Beach or maybe down in Panama City, they get a lot of turnover. And maybe you're not. But emotional loyalty can also pay off pretty big time. And when we talk about growth, how do you grow? Add more units. You have higher checkout values. So instead of $1,000, it's $1,100. And so when we talk about the checkout value, emotional loyalty may be adding a gift basket at check-in. And spend it and pretty cool site like West Maui Condos. If you go check out what Mindy Miller does there, on her checkout page, she's got these like $30 check-in baskets with like 3 towels and like sunscreen. And she's killing it. Right. And so a bit of that is emotional loyalty, really kind of built in.
And that's something that, travelers wouldn't get from another, if they booked with someone else on an OTA. So I think that's really important.
And wouldn't, but they're sniffing it. I mean, you look at you look at what Airbnb's doing, you look at what Expedia's trying to do, and owning that. It's a jump ball out there, and the early adapters that really build the brand and build the emotional loyalty should have an advantage towards growth in the future.
Yeah,
So those are some things to be thinking about as we continue to roll into kind of the eggs in the basket.
So to that note, we're when we go through your digital strategy for 2017, we're really looking at ways to diversify and not necessarily put all your eggs in one basket. So, like Peter said, appreciate the leads that we get from OTAs and continue working with those channels, but then find opportunities to diversify your strategy so you can really capture those leads down the road.
And to illustrate this, we had a call probably 2 months ago. And probably one of those big eggs for a lot of you guys was HomeAway or VRBO. And they changed their algorithm. So just like Google changes their algorithm, and did they call you every time they don't call me?
Unfortunately, I don't get that.
So they don't call us, so they change their algorithm. And we know that those sites they get a lot of traffic. And all of a sudden, if you were driving maybe 20, 30, 40% of your total reservations through that channel, and they shift, it was like platinum, gold, bronze, silver. It was a very complicated system. But if you paid the most, $1,000 to list your house a year, you knew that was going to generate maybe $80,000. So it's a good deal. And they knew that too. So now it's a transactional model. And so things are changing as far as how you get listed there. So many of our professional vacation rental managers that were highly reliant on a few of those specific channels are scrambling a bit. And so that I don't know which egg was that, but I think that helps illustrate and so we're going to talk about some of the things that we see our best
clients,
what they do in order to kind of maintain that mix.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we'll jump into SEO. I always like to think of SEO as kind of the foundation of any web presence. And many of our clients are engaging with us at some level for SEO. So a few of the things to remember for this year. Obviously, SEO has changed pretty drastically in the last 3-5 plus years, but it's not going away. It's just more that we are optimizing for the user intent now. We're not looking at what the search engines want necessarily. if we can optimize for the user, we're going to be rewarded pretty heavily in the search results. So here we've laid out just a few ideas to think about. One, we want to constantly be refining the user experience. So many of you guys are on a ResFusion platform. That's great. That's already putting you ahead of the pack in some ways, in many ways. But just because you have a responsive site, you know it converts, does well on mobile, tablet, and desktop doesn't mean that your job is done necessarily. Users are constantly expecting more and more out of websites. And so we want to make sure we're always looking at how the website works on mobile, on tablet, and looking for those little improvements we can make here and there. Another area to consider with SEO and the user experience, Google recently put out a notice that they'll be penalizing any sites with pop-ups on mobile if they're considered getting interstitials, intrusive. So we want to be thinking about that. Make sure you don't have something obstructing someone's ability to book and get through your site.
And it's not uncommon to have launched a site 2 years ago and maybe not have checked it out on an iPhone 7 or a Samsung Galaxy Note.
Exactly.
I'm kidding, but maybe.
Yeah,
but
the stuff changes.
Stuff changes often, and there's plenty of people, and I'll hit on that on another slide. But I think that's a unique point as it relates to SEO.
Yes, the search engines are looking at bounce rate.
They're still trying to figure out mobile.
When a user gets to your site on a mobile device, we want them to be able to continue to browse and navigate and get deeper into the site. Otherwise, you might not be ranked as high for those terms if we keep seeing high bounce rates. So that's one thing to be looking at for this year. Another thing we really push hard and we will continue to push hard on is creative and thoughtful content. And that's we've got a couple different types of content listed here, but one is consider the traveler journey. What do they need to find on your website from the very, very initial parts of the research phase to all the way to when they're about to stay on your property, or maybe when they're there and they're looking for pretty detailed information on things they can do in the area or how they can reach you or what your policies are while they're staying in your vacation rental. That part of the website is hugely important and it drives quite a bit of traffic.
And really quick, the traveler journey actually got quite a few responses when we launched our poll. So keep an eye out. We might have a webinar in the future just focusing on how to connect with your guests throughout the traveler journey.
That's a great point. And then the other part, just quickly touch on is immersive content. So whether it's a really impactful 30-second video on your homepage to a Matterport 3D video of one of your most prized properties. We want to be finding ways to connect with people in different ways. Most people are going to be much more moved by something visual than just text. So always be keeping in mind how you can add that to your strategy.
I love 2 points there. Number one, creative and thoughtful content. That's what I tell my 12-year-old, 15-year-old, and just continue.
It applies to a lot
of things. But we're seeing videos starting to scratch, and we're seeing a lot on like home pages, and we're seeing different things. Like sometimes it's just the ocean coming in and out. I saw a couple of those sites today. Others, we just launched a site where a little kid it's a beach, and the things come in, and the little kid runs out, and then jumps in the ocean, and so how you're and a couple of things. Video used to be, and it still can be, quite expensive to create, but not too bad. It's gotten better.
It's getting easier.
But like hosting it and like how to place it are some things for us to be really thinking about. And that's, I know, where your team comes in quite a bit. Is what should my video content be about?
Yep.
Is it more for like my homepage to like draw people in? Or is it to tell story about the traveler journey, like a specific house or restaurant, or connect you back to the brand? So there's a lot of avenues there for that.
Yeah, exactly. And then just keep in mind traditional SEO tactics are hugely important still, and they are ever changing. So having someone on your team that is constantly paying attention to new trends in the search engines and looking out for what your site needs on a monthly basis is really important. So looking at how it's indexed, site speed, looking at how you can optimize content for longevity, make sure people are coming back to old blog posts that are still valuable, links, Google Local, the list goes on.
But also, I mean, like the site speed stuff. Most of our clients and partners have a content management tools. So it wouldn't be out of the ordinary for me as an intern to show up at down in Destin at a resort and be like, yeah, I'll post some photos and then be huge.
Site speed just
and
goes
then my
through the roof.
site speed. So these are things to stay consistent on
Exactly.
and
So
not forget about.
Super important.
Because the Google is still pretty big and
Big
important
stuff.
and
Right.
big and important.
So one of the next key parts of a strategy is digital advertising, and I know we're all working with different budgets here, and some of us might only be able to focus on one part of the entire marketing strategy, but it's really important to try to take your budget and use it on as many channels as you can, and really hone in and target each channel because they all work together and they all reach different audiences. So when we think about digital advertising, what I think the key for this year would be, if I could pick one thing, is to think beyond just PPC text ads. That has been, kind of the staple of digital advertising for many, many years, and it's done really well for a lot of our clients. Those ads convert quite strongly. But we want to help people find more ways to reach their audiences online with advertising. There's so much more than just those traditional PPC text ads. Also, really, honing in on your audience and what channels they're using. We're finding more and more that the younger generations don't click those PPC text ads. They're savvier than that when they're searching. They're not going to be tricked by that. They know it's an ad, so they're going to look for the organic result. So perhaps if your audience is much on the younger side, we're going to look at different types of ads like retargeting, display, and social. So we've got a couple different ad types that you can experiment with. We work really hard to take your budget, whether it's modest or extravagant, and find the right mix for you. And it's typically not just one type of ad. So that's really something to think about in the coming year.
This is something I'm pumped about. I mean, I know one, if you're tuning in and you haven't met Maria yet, she's coming in to really help us with our digital advertising and paid search strategies, which has been awesome. And then, and Nicole's been with us for 5-6 years. So we got a great team. And this is
knowledgeable people in the
it's hard, like, because in the old days, you just light up Google and you'd go do your text ads and you'd maybe do some brand terms and some of the Cadillac terms, and you were like getting money.
It was easy.
But that's changing.
We're finding the OTAs are spending a lot on ads
on brand
in the same
terms too.
Space.
Like they'll take your brand term and that drives me crazy. Booking.com's like the worst. It's like they'll take your brand term and you'll search your name and you'll see the ad and it's like, oh, it's a Booking.com.
Yeah.
That only cost me 15% if I was lucky. The other thing that's really cool that I'm seeing as I walk by, like Roy's desk. Roy Coates is our one of our content creators, and he's making all these awesome like banners with like video in it. And I know Maria and Nicole are using those as like creative for retargeting through different channels. So there's just a lot going on versus, hey, spend $1,000 a month every month, pay us $200 a month to manage your $1,000 a month on Google. Like that was so 2011.
Exactly. Yes, like, let's be in 2017 now.
So that's kind of why we're here today.
And do keep in mind, we'll touch on social in a minute here, but I think a lot of people do tend to separate AdWords from social, and they don't consider them one and the same when it comes to advertising. I think everyone, if you're spending a certain amount with AdWords and Bing, you should also be spending a small portion on Facebook or the most relevant social channel. That's a great way to reach those audiences. Consider that when you're planning your budget.
But and this goes back to, I mean, when the phones are ringing or when they're not, a lot of our clients rely on this stuff to pull that lever. And if you want to inject $10,000 in a month to Google, probably going to get some phones ringing. You're probably going to get some site traffic. And it goes back to the ROI term.
Yes.
And making sure that you're not, because you can also waste money real quick doing this.
Exactly.
And if you're not tracking it and you're not effectively, number two, targeting each campaign, you're not doing it right.
Right.
So it's part of kind of that holistic approach that, Brent, I know you and your team talk a lot about.
Yeah.
And I'm pumped about this. I love seeing the new creative coming out, the different channels, through the different devices, and through the, targeting your specific demographic and guests way better. It's pretty cool.
Exciting stuff.
We actually got a great question, and it kind of combines social and SEO.
Yeah.
With using a broad social media effort, how much help can a blog be? And I think it's a good question because we get asked that a lot about content, and when you have a smaller team, it's difficult to come up with the resources to be able to write.
Definitely. I mean, I think that is where quality over quantity really reigns true. A well-written, well-thought-out, well-researched blog post can bring traffic for years and years to come, and it can bring really relevant, qualified traffic. So it's important to use all of your social channels, whatever they may be, even your email marketing channels, to promote any content that you create. So when you first write that blog post, get it promoted everywhere you can. But then again, if it's a useful, great topic, if it's optimized well, that will continue to be a relevant piece of content for you. I've got one of our clients in Whistler, Blackcomb Peaks. They have a couple blog posts on area sightseeing things, the Inukshuk at the top of Whistler, that drives them hundreds of visits every month.
Did Roy write that?
I wrote it.
Oh, Roy didn't?
I'm the expert blogger there.
Roy was writing that stuff.
Yeah, but it was when I visited them a few years ago. I wrote that piece of content, and not trying to toot my
nice, good writing.
but it's just a really nice example of how a well thought out piece of content can continue to drive traffic to you.
Now to be the other side, we have a longtime partner that went to go see some seminar and decided that blogging was going to be the end all be all, and that's where they were going to invest much of their resource and time.
Yeah.
And so after about 6 months, blog traffic was up 1,000%. Like big, lots of blog traffic. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Bookings down 20%. So please balance this stuff.
Yes.
When you go when you watch a TED Talk or you watch more webinars like this, like balance this stuff, you guys.
And it's key to try to, with that blog post, try to keep people browsing, and maybe even have a website, e-newsletter sign up on that blog page. Anything to keep people engaged. We can add snippets to the bottom of all your blog posts with relevant blog posts. If they're interested in this, they might want to read this, and just find ways to keep them browsing. We don't want them to visit the blog and not
blog traffic up, revenue down, no good.
We'll address that. That happens.
The only other thing I wanted to add is you can really take the content that you write for a blog and use it across many different channels and break it up. So capitalize on all that content that you write and use it throughout all of your channels, because there's no reason why all that great information just needs to live on your blog. You could use it for brochures. You can use it on social. You really use it in email and anywhere. You should get that content wherever you can.
Cool.
Great. Good question.
All right. So we're going to chat a little bit about email. And email, still, even though the industry is changing and traveler behavior has changed, email still is, it still reigns for driving traffic and conversions, and it just has really been successful over the years, and it continues to grow in success. But with that, you also have to continually adapt your email strategy, and what we used to call batch and blast just won't work anymore. We need to adjust the strategy and create emails that travelers really love and they feel compelled, and it builds that emotional loyalty that Bryn mentioned. So a couple of things to consider for 2017. One thing is gathering data can seem a little daunting, and it can be overwhelming when people start listing all the information that you should be gathering. But if you keep it simple and start identifying your audience, who's your ideal target, gather data on that information. And it might be for you as easy as people who prefer homes versus condominiums if you offer both. Or it might be people who tend to come in the spring months over summer or something like that. Just keep it simple, but start gathering that data and then create and identify segments that you can use that data for. So again, going back to Bryn's point about the traveler journey, when you do create these segments, it's really important to focus on your traveler journey. So what are your guests doing throughout their booking funnel? Are they dreaming? Are they planning? Are they actually traveling? Or they maybe are you looking at them as a returning guest? Just know where they are within that traveler journey and then segment accordingly. And then the third tip is to create automated workflows, and we are going to have an email webinar on February 23rd.
Right? It's gonna be pretty technical. Like they're gonna show you'll get to like see check boxes and like
it's going to be
ways to do it, right?
It's going to be intermediate. So
intermediate.
Cool. But we're definitely going to go into how some of the tools that we use to automate workflows. But it really helps. It certainly makes your life easier, but also really connects with your travelers throughout their journey. So we'll go into more in depth on automated workflows, but. And then, as always, Bryn mentioned this in the beginning, but we really encourage our clients to measure, test, track, and experiment. I think is super important, and then refine based off those experiments. So
you're not always going to do it right the exact first time.
No.
And then just do the same thing over and over and over and over again.
No.
Bug everyone.
Yeah, right. And everybody's like, oh, well, why aren't they booking my big fancy house?
So honestly, I mean, as simple as testing your subject line, each and every email send will get you that much more success with your campaigns. And we always try having one subject line that's super direct and one that's maybe a little bit more emotional, or and just test those. Test subject lines at the very least every email send, and then from there you can really get into testing, the content and all of that. But if you can start with the subject line, that's going to be great.
That's how we got everybody here to sign up for the webinar, right?
Yeah.
We tricked you all with the subject lines. So,
absolutely.
That's good. But 100% tune in for the email seminar. February 24th, I think we're shooting for.
The 23rd.
23rd. So check in with Ryan and Eric and Jesse and Kelly. They run a great little pod over there, and always something to be learned from what those guys are doing. I kind of blows me away how much they've evolved that whole platform.
It's pretty amazing. So now we're going to hop into social, and if I was to restructure this would be right under digital advertising, because Bryn made such a great point that social and digital advertising really go hand in hand these days. And
I thought you just hired an intern to just do your Facebook posts.
No.
Oh.
And it's interesting to see Maria and Reagan, who's our social expert, working so closely on every campaign. It's been fun to watch. So a couple things to keep in mind on social. It can be inundating where there are so many different channels, but we really suggest keeping it simple and knowing where your strength is and knowing where your audience is. For many of you, Facebook is really going to be one of the most compelling platforms for your audience. But if you tend to have more millennials, Instagram might be just as important. So really knowing your audience and keeping in mind, what they're using will help. And then again, like Bryn mentioned, focus your content on the guest experience. So really trying to diversify your content between, property images and then things to do in the area, or opportunities to really build a great vacation. If you can diversify that, that's going to be successful. Reagan helped actually with this slide, and she suggested 25% or less of your content should be sales focused. So I think
pretty good guidance.
Yeah, that's great. Very helpful to keep in mind. And then engaging with your fans, I think this is really important to just follow up with your fans when they're commenting or responding to your social posts or sharing your content. If you can engage with them at all during that, that's a great opportunity to stay in front of their audience, but also keep them emotionally connected to your brand.
It's a cheap way for emotional loyalty. I mean, that's kind of that's one of the eggs in the basket.
And this is a story I've told quite a bit, but Aspen Somas, we heard from their director of marketing that he was one time on a chairlift and saw a tweet that was that wasn't great about his experience on the mountain, and he immediately followed up, and that tweet changed into a glowing review about the resort. So anything that you can do that's relevant and timely with your guests is really going to help extend your brand. The fourth tip is to advertise. Bryn mentioned this, but it's so important to advertise on social. It's amazing how the algorithms have changed, and you really have to advertise to get your content seen on the platforms.
Go.
Oh, sorry. Just to go back to that blog post question, Pinterest, doing promoted pins on Pinterest is a fantastic way to get exposure for your blogs. I know I personally use Pinterest when I'm planning a new my next trip to find area guides and advice on things that I can't miss in that destination. So that's a really great way to promote your blog post. So we can absolutely help with that.
Absolutely.
My one note on the advertising
Yes.
is that these social platforms, Facebook, Instagram, etc., are all highly incentivized to build better advertising into their platforms, and it's changing often. And so the rules of the game 6 months ago are different today, and that's where working with somebody like a Nicole or Maria or Reagan really comes in to be quite successful, because just posting now doesn't get you where you need to be.
Yeah.
They're incentivized to make those advertisements as effective as possible, and it's an interesting playground for driving very unique traffic and pretty engaged traffic.
Right. Collect and utilize user-generated content. I think this is a really great point, and the woman who asked the question earlier about having a small team and not a ton of bandwidth, this is a great way to be able to use social media without having to create all your content from scratch. Another great idea is to empower your team. I know that here at Blue Tent, whenever someone posts a photo, I'm asking if we can borrow that photo, because it's great content. And so your team, your reservationist, a lot of your team is probably active on social media, and so empowering them to engage with your brand will help a lot as well.
Awesome.
And then finally, just paying attention to which ads to post and which ads your audience responds to is important, and it will help you optimize your presence on the road. So keep that in mind.
We've got about 5 minutes, so we're gonna
Okay, cool.
we're gonna pick up to be sure to hit deadlines, and hopefully you guys, this is another little kick in the behind, is that if you built your website even like a month ago, there's new stuff happening daily. So remember that you should be checking in with Blue Tent support, your web support, whoever you're talking to. Be checking in and be asking about stuff. At the end of the day, your website, we call it an e-commerce platform, should be your best salesperson. And they do things like they tell you if there's not a lot of inventory left for a specific date. If you called me and said, I'm coming over President's Day, I would say, oh, we only have 3 houses left.
Better book now.
So your website should say that. I may also say, hey, if you came on Sunday to Thursday, I've got 17 houses instead of just 2. So you might be able to provide a flexible date search. So these are all things, some of the shared features that are coming out of some of our newest things as far as how do you engage. We see that for many of the destinations you guys represent, it's not just like a couple and 2 kids. Like that's maybe 50%. The other 50% is like groups of like family and friends, and they need to be able to share, and your web, your e-commerce platform should be that conduit to allow that. And I know Ryan's going to touch on that, because a lot of this is email driven, but it's also web driven, and the ability to share and choose dates by sharing and map by sharing. These are all things that continue to evolve literally weekly out of the shop here. With under Ned's leadership and from our technical standpoint, and what Braden and Ethan do, and our whole web team and support team, we're getting pushed to do awesome stuff. Back to Bryn's point on the old website, look at it. Just because it was mobile 2 years ago doesn't mean that mobile hasn't changed a little bit. Like, go on there and try to book your house or try to share stuff, and if it's not right, fix it, because more people are using that channel. So obviously a lot we could talk about here, but mainly this is a reminder that you got to stay on top of this stuff, and it's a weekly, monthly check-in on your website. It's probably never perfect.
Yeah, and I think to go right into what Peter was just talking about, our strategic consultants do a really good job of making sure you know about all these new tips and tools and enhancements and things we can do for you. We want our clients to be successful and to continue to grow and evolve. So we'll do a pretty good, darn good job of letting you guys know whenever there's anything new. And at the same time, all the different channels that we just talked about, from SEO to social to advertising, those strategic consultants do a fantastic job of kind of pulling everything together and making sure all those channels are working in unison. What you do on your website greatly impacts your ad landing pages. Whenever you send an email, social should know about it so they can create a corresponding social ad. So I think that's the benefit of working with our digital consultants. They can tie everything together for you, make sure you're working on forward-thinking initiatives that are really going to get you that competitive advantage that we talked about in the beginning.
I think, from my perspective, our best, most successful clients are all working with us on a strategy level.
Yes, and the ones that have seen the most growth
whether
over
it's
the
10
years.
to 30 hours a month, even our big guys that have like staff, like we've got some awesome. We got a great group out on Hatteras Island that's got like the staff. They still work with us and on this level, and it's like 15, 20 hours a month, and it's somebody to collaborate with, and so our best clients work with us in this way, and it really does change the engagement significantly.
It does.
So that's some things to think about.
So just to bring
It's
it
exactly what you need to do.
just to bring it full circle, this is a very rough example of how we suggest clients diversify their strategy, and again, not so that you avoid putting all your eggs in one basket. And again, it will change based on your region, based on your business goals. But this is kind of what we see as a strong strategy for 2017. So
connect those dots.
Yeah.
You're good. Yeah. It's like you had eggs or a pie graph.
Exactly. So then we go into, many of you are clients on here, and we appreciate it. But I don't know, Pete, if you want to talk about a little bit.
Why choose to work with us? Because we're crazy. We have dogs. No, I think that at the end of the day, we're good teammates, and I think that getting and understanding what the vacation rental market is like, how to rent a condo in Maui or a house in Destin, is something that is continuing to grow. And we're travelers at heart. We're part of it. We got some cool stats here from this last year where we've grown to about 47 people, probably about 50 here by the end of next month.
Yeah.
We got some exciting new hires happening and just some cool stuff going on. 35,000 cups of coffee. I know that
cups.
Yeah, right. So we've got a great group here that's engaged and really truly is part of your team. Your success is our success, and your challenges are our challenges. And whether it's just one piece of the pie or others, we truly enjoy this stuff, and it's fun to talk about. There's a couple of ways to work with us that you're going to just kind of show people. Just a quick reminder here.
Yeah. So really quick, we actually had a couple questions that we can follow up with you after this webinar. But one of them was about advertising on Facebook, and
lo and behold,
we have webinars. And actually, I'm going to refresh this because I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we have. So the email best practice webinar. This is going to be on February 23rd. So feel free to hop onto our webinar page and sign up. But then we also have all of our past recordings of webinars. So
get the 3D spaces for get it done. Yeah, why not Instagram?
We actually have one all about why Facebook, why social media, and that really will help you dive into how to advertise. Reagan does a great job discussing that. And then another question was about how to advertise in the off season, or how to market for the off season. And we have a great I should go to infographic on that. So feel free to hop in, and again, we'll follow up with you outside of this. But all of our infographics can be found on our homepage. And there's one that's specific just about
an
the shoulder
infographic
season.
page. That's awesome.
And that could be a webinar topic down the road, too.
Exactly. Yeah,
Digging
for
into
sure. So it's moving a little slow. But then the other thing I wanted to suggest is just taking a look at our team page. We have everyone on here that Bryn mentioned from her team, certainly all the consultants, and it's pretty exciting to see. So I encourage you to hop on. And then finally, if you want to reach out to us, the easiest way is just through our forum on our Connect With Us page, and you can follow up with us very easily.
Yeah. So thanks for tuning in, and we hope to see you at the email webinar. Not more than we're out here today. What did we tap out at? We had about, we'll call it
45.
yeah, but a few left, so we'll call it 70.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks
thank
everybody.
you all so much. Take care.